Welcome back, America. Jonathan Williams is President and Chief Executive Officer of the American Legislative Exchange Council. He's got the greatest bookshelf in the world, except for the Michigan cutout. Jonathan, I have not talked to you since the One Big Beautiful Bill passed. What's your favorite part of it?
Well, there's so much to talk about there, Hugh. But I mean, I think the big takeaway, really, that all of us need to remember is we just dodged a massive bullet aimed right at the American taxpayer if this thing didn't get renewed in terms of the Trump tax cuts. I think we guaranteed a recession if we didn't get this done. And I think one of the most important elements of this, a little bit 10,000 foot here, Hugh, is outside of the individual provisions, which are all very, very important, whether it's the small business provisions or individual taxpayer provisions, is because the House took the Senate version of this package. The Senate version was always a permanent extension. And this is what the president talked about almost from day one, is we want a permanent extension of those Trump tax cuts. So this takes away this guesswork and the ambiguity and all that uncertainty that plagues capital markets and plagues small business investment decisions. And you have permanent certainty when it comes to the expensing provisions, whether the small business treatment, the individual rate reductions, even the death tax relief. All of that doesn't have to be left to the whims of reconciliation rules and temporary phase outs. That is an incredible victory on behalf of taxpayers all across the country.
You know, when ALEC gets together in Indianapolis in a week, the American Legislative Exchange Council is getting together for it's just going to be one long party. I think you're just going to start drinking when you get there and go for an entire week. But, John, I got one hard curveball for you. Ted Cruz proposed a 10-year moratorium on any state legislation having to do with AI. That was removed in a vote prior to the adoption of the Senate bill, which became the law. What was the reaction of ALEC to the original Cruz provision forbidding state legislation on AI and then on the repeal of it? What did you think of that whole thing?
Well, we had a lot of friends on both sides of that discussion, as you can imagine, Hugh. I mean, I think there's a couple of really important takeaways here. Number one, we absolutely cannot lose to China in the race for AI, right? I mean, I think that's what Senator Cruz is trying to do and bring up something that was very similar to what Congress did in the 1990s under Speaker Gingrich and others, which was the Internet Tax Freedom Act, was to allow the internet to grow unencumbered by burdensome regulations and taxation, right? And so that was the idea from Senator Cruz, a very free market guy. But you also had some serious concerns. And as we heard from many, many state legislators across the country to say, hey, we don't know what AI is going to look like a year from now, let alone 10 years from now. Maybe let's not move so quickly to ban all state activity. And so then, of course, there was the discussion around a compromise, I think, from Senator Blackburn from Tennessee, who's a great friend of ALEC and another ALEC alum, one of our 114 in this current Congress, as you know well, Hugh. And there was a compromise language. And of the day that got stripped. But I think this is an important discussion that America's state legislators are going to continue to have with the members of Congress. And I think this is a great piece of where ALEC should be right now, talking with our more than 100 members of this current Congress about what that should look like going forward.
Now, I had Senator Rucker of West Virginia on, who is your chairman for the National Convention for ALEC this year, at the end of last week. She's pretty excited about the fact that they got voter ID put into the West Virginia law. It seemed kind of crazy that we would have to celebrate that, but it's true. We had to celebrate that. Is that on the agenda for the July big meet in Indianapolis?
Well, we got a lot of great things on the agenda, including our new task force on process and procedures, which is going to include things like citizens-only voting, as well as ID for voting. I mean, this is a no-brainer 90% American issue, as we've talked about, Hugh, and we launched the new task force. And so it is a good point that most Americans think that you probably have that in most states, especially conservative states like West Virginia, but it's going to be absolutely something that we discuss. And one of the interesting factors of this is the gentleman who chairs this new task force for us is Representative John Breen from Rhode Island, not necessarily known to be one of the most conservative states these days, but he was actually
one of the cleanest states, or one of the least corrupt states. Yeah.
That's right. And he was a sponsor of the voter ID law that now Rhode Island now has in law and is the chair of our new task force. So we're going to see everything from West Virginia on the right to Rhode Island on the left politically come together to talk about these common sense ideas.
Something good came out of Rhode Island. That is remarkable. You made my day, Jonathan Williams. I want everyone to know they can go to ALEC, ALEC.org/Hugh to get the State of the States newsletter. It's completely free. ALEC, ALEC.org/Hugh. Hey, Jonathan, very quickly, do you have a surge in people joining as they realize the states are where it is at right now? Are more legislators joining?
100% legislators, private sector members. We're going to have 450 or more state legislators in Indianapolis next week. We're seeing a surge of activity. As you know, we had the letter calling for the permanent extension of the Trump tax cuts. Over 630 state legislators across the country saying this is the right thing to do. We need to limit the SALT deduction, all those important facets of it. So we are seeing more legislator engagement now at ALEC than in my 18 years that I've been here. It's really exciting.
Have a great week in Indianapolis. I'll talk to you from there. I hope don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt.